Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? This is Jeff from BKJ Mag TV, and this is the official podcast of the BKJ Mag experience. And this is episode 25. Yes, episode 25. That's amazing to me. That's just incredible. I started this podcast in early August. Now we're in the middle of September and we're on episode 25. Every episode that I make, I try to personalize it. Try to talk about interesting topics that really matter to the audience, to me, and try to create a conversation. I'm willing to talk about it, basically. So, episode 25 is about this young African American actress. I think everybody knows her character very well. If anybody grew up in the 90s, they know about this show called Boyz Meets World. It was a show that was on TGIF every Fridays. It's about the suburban white family. His name was Corey Matthews. He lived, obviously, the Matthews family. He had his dad, the mom, his sister, who got written out the show eventually a couple of seasons later, Morgan. And he had his best friend, Sean, who lived in the trailer park, but who went from home to home, trying to figure out where his true identity came from. And he had his older brother, Eric. If you watch the earlier episodes, he was smart. And as the show winded down in seasons, they made him dim-witted, basically turned him into comic relief. I never liked the whole comic relief thing about a character. I feel like that ruins a character. But anyway, this episode is not about them. It's about this African American actress who played Angela. She came on season 5. Her real life name is Tina McGree. Again, her name is Tina McGee. I'm sorry. Tina McGee basically came on season 5 and played Angela. She was Sean Hunter's love interest, his girlfriend on the show. If you remember, I remember when I was a kid, when season 5 came on, they were in the student union in college, and you could see Sean making out with a black girl. I was like, wait, what? Am I seeing this right? Is Sean making out with a black girl? And I remember how interested I felt. I remember like, wow, because I'm black. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm literally seeing an interracial relationship on screen. And this was very different, I didn't realize it at that time, being such a little kid, that racism and race relations was such a big issue, and how a moment like that between two different people from different racial backgrounds were just making out with each other. I just couldn't believe it. And the way they kissed each other, they looked like they were in sync. They looked like they were in motion. Like it gave you a sense like they went out after the show because of the way they kissed so well and the way they connected so well with each other. It was just like, wow, I just couldn't believe it, to bring a person of color in on the show. And I didn't, as I grew up later on, and I didn't realize this, but it was an all-white cast. There wasn't really anybody of color on the show. It was just a suburban white family, white friends that lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And it was just like, wow, it was an all white experience. So I was looking at it growing up, I was like thinking that's how reality was. But, coming from where I was coming from, I was gravely wrong. And I was just like, wow, and people was telling me, why do you talk like that? Why do you act like that? And I'm just like, they were trying to say, why you acted white? Why was I moving like a white person? And that's the show that I was watching. Those are the shows that I was watching. I was watching these shows, and I didn't really think much of it. I just saw it. I responded to it, and I thought everybody was the same in that reality, but I was wrong. And so seeing an interracial couple, I didn't think of it as an interracial couple at the time. I just thought it was just two people just making out, but one was a person of color and one was white. And I just remember feeling so interested in it. And however, Tina didn't feel welcome on the show. In fact, Miss McGee did not feel welcome. She basically felt ostracized by the cast and the producers. In fact, she had many moments where they treated her indifferently from the other cast members, because most of the cast members were white. Let's be honest, most of the cast members were white. So they basically treated her differently. In this article by Stephanie Holland, she talked about how she had to tone down her blackness to a level 2 and from a level 9. Now, what does that mean, toning down your blackness? Hearing that is just racist in itself. How do you tone down your blackness? Do you want me to tone down my emotions of being a black person? Do you want me to stop using certain words as a black person? Like, what does that mean? I gotta understand, what does that mean, tone down my blackness? And honestly, that's what Miss McGree had to go through. She had to go through the fact that she was told by the producers on an all-white producing team that she had to tone down her blackness for the cast, because in essence it was too much for them to bear. And it just honestly just makes no sense. So let me go into the article. If you are of a certain age and all about the 90s TV, then like me, you may have considered Boyz Meets World appointment viewing. When Angela showed up in season 5, things got even more exciting as we followed the ups and downs of her relationship with Sean. Like I said earlier, now Tina McGree, who played Angela, is opening up about her experiences on the popular teen comedy, including how she had to dial down her blackness for the white sitcom. During an appearance on the Pod Meets World cast. Honestly, I support other podcasters, but those people seem like total douchebags. And now growing up and seeing what they did and how they treated Miss McGree, honestly, let's be honest, I don't really care about the cast of Boyz Meets World. Like I said, I think they're assholes. And it's just disgusting, especially Will Friedle, the one who played the comedy relief, Eric. I think he's a household prick. He makes a joke that's just so inappropriate towards Miss McCree. It just honestly just makes it's just disgusting. So let me go on to the article. Let's see. Which is the series, their podcast, Pod Meets World. What kind of stupid name is that? Will Friedle and Daniel Fisher and Ryder Strong discuss this transition about their show and stuff like that. Let's see, Daniel Fisher. McGree discussed the transition she made from Black series like A Different World, Martin and family members to the mostly white boy meets world cast. Honestly, A Different World, it brought diversity in. You know, they encouraged white participation. They dealt with the race relations. Martin, same thing. Family Matters, same thing. But it was an all-black cast, and you notice that, okay, whites and blacks, they got their own. Whites got their own show, blacks got their own show. At the end of the day, it was racially divided, and it's kind of sad. It's really kind of sad. But honestly, she says coming from those shows, she had to be at a certain level of blackness. Like she felt comfortable because she was around her own people. But when she came on Boyz Meets World, she didn't feel comfortable. She had to tone it down some. And this is what she states on the article. Coming from black sitcoms, I always had to have a black meter. She said, on Boyz Meets World, my black meter was probably down to about a 2. While filming the season 7 episode, Angela's Ashes, where her father visits forces her to deal with long-held trauma over her mother's abandonment. The actress revealed that her black meter had slipped up and it was about a 9. During production, showrunner Michael Jacobs came over and told her to tone down the Thelma Hopkins about 8 notches. First of all, that is so racist. Tone down the Thelma Hopkins about 8 notches. It's called, when you just say, can you bring down the emotion just a little bit? Bring down just the emotion just a little bit. It was a little bit too much on the screen. On the camera, just bring it down. Why do you have to refer to Thelma Hopkins as your way of directing her on the behind the camera? I think it's just stupid in front of the camera. I'm sorry, in front of the camera. It's just dumb. It's so dumb and it's so racist. Michael Jacobs, I'm gonna be honest. You are a prick. Like, screw you for that comment. Like, screw you for that comment. And this is coming from J-Mac. Screw you. And honestly, looking at it, it's just it creates a sense of hostility and tension and racism, and it's just unfair that she had to deal with that. It's really sick. It's really disgusting. Tone down her Thelma Hopkins. It's ridiculous, man. Gree added that she knew exactly what he was talking about and followed his directions, but also explained to her former co-stars that they were lucky they didn't have to worry about this all the time, because sometimes it was too much. With all of that animosity, her having to tone down her blackness in front of a bunch of white cast members, I could understand why she felt it was too much. It was overbearing, and you could imagine every black person that steps into a room full of white people and they have to tone down the blackness. They have to present themselves as being less aggressive. They have to adapt really quickly into the room. It's just sad. I remember in Brooklyn College, honestly, which I had a shitty experience at. Don't like that school whatsoever. The film department was so shitty. I was in the class with a bunch of freaking pricks, film pricks. To be honest with you, I'm gonna call them film pricks. They were pricks. There was maybe 1 or 2 that were cool, but most of them were A-list pricks, and they were white, and they didn't care. They didn't decide to help. They didn't want to collaborate with me. They wanted to do their own thing with their own people, and they only cared about navigating, getting their grade. They did their grades. They didn't care. And it was just ridiculous. So, and then it made me feel extremely uncomfortable. And I realized one thing, the struggle of being a person of color in a room full of white people, it's tough. And when you're in a room full of white people, you gotta deal with racism. When you're in a room full of black people, you gotta deal with prejudice, because blacks will tell you, oh, you sound white, oh, you acting white. Whites will tell you, "Oh, you don't belong here. You're not as smart as us. Get out, go deal with your own people." That's the sides you gotta play, and it's sad. It's really sad, and I can understand why Miss McGree's feelings, why she had mixed feelings about the situation, because it was not cool at all. I understand why she said it was too much to bear. So, and they said, the cast members who were in the room who was doing their podcast says, "Wow, there's a lot to talk about there." First of all, if he needed to give her notes, there was no need to bring the lovely Thelma Hopkins into it. Second, McGree made it clear this was just one of the multiple moments where she had to swallow microaggressions and uncomfortable moments and just throw it away, because this was how she supported her family. While we were all shopping Sean and Angela, the actress was busy navigating a minefield anyone who worked in a predominantly white space is familiar with. She had to hold it in. She couldn't complain about it. She had to eat it. She had to take the L on it and just smile in front of the camera, because her family relied on her. Her family needed the money, and she had to say, "Yes, sir." And it hurt. It hurt so much that she had to deal with that, because society does not create an equal opportunity to be successful. Racism and prejudice and discrimination will always reign supreme, and it's always hard. It is always hard for a person of color to come up. Like I said, when you're with your own people, when a black person is with their own people, they gotta deal with prejudice. When they're around white people, they gotta deal with racism. It's just like, what do you do? What do you do as a black person trying to come up? What do you do? And with her, she couldn't ruin it because her family relied on her. So she took the L. McGree and Fiddle also discussed the moment when the classmates were joking around together and Will stupidly told a joke referring to her as Aunt Jemima. When McGree showed up in a red hat scarf. At the time, she explained to Fiddle why his joke wasn't the same as all the other ones the cast had been saying about each other, and he described it as a life all the other ones that cast had been saying about each other, and he described it as a life-changing moment where his young privileged self learned he couldn't just say anything and assume it meant the same to everyone. So in a sense, he realized the impact, the social impact, when he made that comment, when he compared her to Aunt Jemima. They actually changed the name. It was the murder of George Floyd in 2020, and the social protests is not just in Minneapolis, not just in New York, but around the United States and around the world. Especially at the height of COVID, they were like they wasn't gonna take it anymore, and you saw companies like Pearl Mining remove the name Aunt Jemima because it was a racist trope, racist incarnation of reducing a black person to a servant role. So they had to remove it, and they finally did. But at the time, Fredo did not understand why he had made that comment. He couldn't understand. He just didn't understand. And I'm glad that he acknowledged the fact that it was a life-changing moment, and he understood that his privilege as a young white man, is just not the same as a black person coming up. It's just not, and he couldn't say anything that means the same to everybody. There's certain things you're supposed to know you cannot say to certain people, because it could come out as prejudice or racist or really just straight up nasty. And that comment he made was straight up nasty and racist, but he just didn't understand that, and the fact that he called it life changing, and now he understood the value in what he said, and he understood like how wrong he was. I respected that he took ownership of it, and he deeply apologized to Miss McGree for his insensitive comments about that, and his comparison, and the comparison he made to her with the Aunt Jemima bottle. It takes a real man to own it, his mistake, and apologize for it and move on from it. And he took that and he owned it, and he's apologized for it, and he's moved on. So I respect that in Mr. Fredo. I'm glad he took ownership of it. Let me see. As they talked through the incident, the two were very cordial and respectful, having learned from the situation and seemingly moved on. The four actors repeatedly marveled at how, if they had just gone over themselves and explored these issues earlier, they could have saved themselves years of misunderstandings and resentment. For fans of the show, it was a fascinating conversation that added deeper context to some of the show's less serious moments. There was moments where Danielle, who played Topanga, basically made Angela, Miss McGree, felt unwelcome on set, creating a sense of isolation. And basically they made sure that she wasn't on the last episode, because they really pushed her away. And I just did not like that. I really did not like that. I think it was just disrespectful. And honestly speaking, I'm glad they learned from it. I'm glad they acknowledged it for sure, and they apologized to Miss McCree. But at that time, it was the 90s. I learned this in history. Whatever people's attitudes were at that time, that lens, that's what they knew. They were coming up, that's what they thought was right. So it's like years down the line, it's like they now realize how wrong they were. That's why I never really watched that show Girls Meets World, because to be honest with you, it was not groundbreaking. It didn't offer no new insight. I thought the show was just a cheap knockoff of Boyz Meets World in such a watered down way. It was just intolerable to watch. It was disgusting. I just did not like that show whatsoever. Thought the theme song was super lame. It was just whack as hell. So I never gave Girls Meets World a chance for me to really watch it, because I just couldn't bear to watch it. It was just that bad. And I felt like if they needed to do a true spin-off of Boyz Meets World, they could have ran Angela's character with Sean's character, and that's interesting to watch. An interracial couple living with each other in New York. That would have been interesting to watch, honestly, because they just have that energy on screen, and their chemistry, and just a lot of eyes would have been glued to their developing relationship, just because it's an interracial couple and it's a spin-off of Boyz Meets World. I think it just would have been very, very interesting to watch. Overall, I guess, hey, Pod Meets World, listen to it if you need to. I'ma listen to it. So, but please listen to BKJ Mac TV. And let's be honest, racism will never go away. Prejudice will never go away. Discrimination will never go away. Though it doesn't matter what skin color you are, there's gonna be someone that's gonna hold you back. It could be your own people, or it could be the opposing race. Someone is gonna just try to stop you from making your true value, your true money. So you just gotta find a way to navigate through it as much as possible until you're able to get all the resources to stand up on your own 2 feet. So overall, I'm so sorry for what Miss McCree went through on Boyz Meets World. I'm hoping that her career gets stronger, it gets better, that she meets more casting directors and they're able to cast her in movies and TV shows. There's so many channels, there's so much streaming stuff out there, and I strongly believe she's a strong actress. I believe she should be cast into one of these shows that's out there so she can get paid and whatnot. That's how it's supposed to go. Build black wealth, build black opportunity, systemic empowerment, systemic character and strength in numbers. That's how it gotta be. This was episode 25 of the BKJ Mag experience. Thank you for listening, everybody. This was episode 25. I appreciate y'all as always. One love. Peace.